Hello, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of ConneX AI. I'm Alex Brace, and for those of you who don't know who I am, I started ConneX AI a few months ago to help people like yourself keep up to date with the ever-evolving world of AI. So it began as a weekly LinkedIn newsletter, quick, simple breakdowns of what's happening in AI. The link's in the description if you'd like to check it out. And alongside this, I work in the cloud, digital, and AI space, providing companies with consultants and resources who can bridge the gap between business and tech. I focus on plugging in people who really understand the technical details, but also know how to get projects delivered and make a real impact. I'm also launching this podcast series to go deeper. I'm chatting with real experts who are building the tech, solving the problems, and pushing AI innovation forward. And today, I'm joined with Jesper Lowgren, a chief enterprise architect who specializes in digital transformation, AI adoption, and is starting to build out agentic systems inside enterprise organizations. So without further ado, I'll see you on the inside and let's get started. Hey, Jesper, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No worries at all. Thank you for joining the first episode of ConneX AI. Absolute pleasure to have you on board with us. So without further ado, do you want to dive straight in? Tell us who you are, what your background is exactly, and where you are today.
My name is Jesper Lowgren. I'm an enterprise architect. I specialize in, of course, enterprise architecture, but also Agentic AI, or also what we're calling multi-agent systems, and helping organization understanding how to plan the structure and foundation, etc., in order to be able to deploy AI agents and also multi-agent systems successfully. So I've spent several years setting up enterprise architect practices and capabilities in small organizations, large organizations, and consulting organizations. And I have 10 years of senior program management experience as well. So on one hand, I've architected the system, but I've also spent some time implementing. And I much prefer to architect.
What a career. Great for people coming into the world of technology in particular, which interested me on your profile on LinkedIn was the Enterprise Architecture 4.0. So how is this different from old school traditional approaches?
Right. So we need to take a step back here and first establish what enterprise architecture is. And enterprise architecture, as you know, it's a framework or it's a method, fairly static, and it covers everything from what we call business architecture, data architecture, application architecture, and technology architecture. The way of trying to describe a whole organization across all these different domains. And what enterprise architecture does is to connect together. The problem with enterprise architecture is it hasn't been very effective in the past. It's very framework based. It's a lot of pretty pictures that people find it difficult to connect with. And it's very static. It's like you painting a picture of the organization and then you're expecting the organization to not change too much. That is not going to fit into the agentic world now that we're going into, where everything is going to go much quicker. And it's really being ruled by very different rules, fundamentally different. And going into this world, we simply need to think about architecture very differently. And that is what enterprise architecture 4.0 is. It's reimagining enterprise architecture for the agentic AI world. And the way it's doing that is to take this concept of a static framework and turning it into dynamic model, into simulation that's living and moving all the time. Eventually, you don't plan in the future, you won't be planning your architecture. You will be simulating your architecture if it works in a simulation. It's very different.
And why is cognition more important than structure?
Because we have something very new that are coming to the business world, into the mix, which is obviously artificial intelligence. And it's not artificial intelligence the way that we knew it before. This is more real intelligence. I see the opportunity as being able to scale cognition at a fraction of the cost or price. And it's different because of its capability. The latest AI agents, or LLMs, strictly speaking, up to an IQ now of 136. So they are very capable of reasoning, and they can do reasoning much quicker than a human, of course. This human level reasoning at scale that is starting to change things. That is a game changer.
Yeah, for sure. It's moving at such a pace as well. It's hard to keep up, as we all know. And another thing that's caught my attention as well in around your LinkedIn profile, and it's around the intelligent 9 systems and how do they actually change how a business runs?
That's a good.
And what are they, in fact?
And it comes back to what I said before about moving from a framework into a model, into a system. With the 9 systems, I think the biggest shift out of all this shift is going to be the mindset shift. It is simply about to reprogram our mind, function in a world where everything is moving, everything is dynamic and changing all the time. So the 9 agentic system is just as much for the mindset that it is for an organization to understand what kind of architecture, what kind of enterprise architecture we need in the future, whether it's AI 4.0 or something else, it doesn't matter, but understanding what the nature of that architecture is. And when you look at that nature, you can deduce certain systems. Obviously, it needs to have intelligence. It needs to have autonomy. It needs to have a system of record, etc. So we can start understanding what those systems are, and we can understanding the mindset behind the system, and then we can start applying that mindset onto the agentic business, where architecture is going to be moving, is going to be influenced by these systems. And these systems actually link through to everything. You can link them back to your strategy, you can link them back to your governance, obviously your architecture, to your design, even to your all these 9 systems together actually form the agentic AI operating model.
Cool. And I think we can dive a bit deeper into that on some of the other questions we've got here. So agentic AI, obviously a term lots of people are still struggling to understand. So my question to you is, how do you explain it in simple terms to non-technical leaders?
Yeah, another really good question. To me, an agent is someone that can act on his own. If you look at the word itself, agency, it means that you're empowered to do something. So an AI agent, that's an agent that is operating an AI that is empowered to do something, and that's been giving a responsibilities and empowerment of creating something. It's an AI agent. Here we can argue whether it is truly autonomous or whether it is deterministic. I think that's a bit of an academic argument, so we can leave that to the side. But also, we have this agent. Yeah, we can have a number of these agents, and we can connect these agents. So you can have 5 of these AI agents that each specialize in their own thing, and they can work together. And what makes them agentic is when we set up a goal, one goal, and we're setting up these agents, in this case, 5 agents, to work together to achieve that one goal. That's a multi-agent system. It's not agents doing whatever they want. It's agents collaborating to achieve something together.
The collaboration between them. Got you. Okay. Any examples that you have off the top of your head that's a common use case?
And there are not that many agentic systems out there. I'm building one every one. I'm not sure how much it's really at work, so I probably can't tell you much about that.
No worries at all.
I can give examples. If you want to set up a new marketing business, let's say you want to set up something in marketing automation or marketing communication or social media, etc., you can go to a place called N8N. It's an open source platform for agentic.
I've seen that, yeah.
And you can just find an entire blueprint for an agentic system for a marketing function, because marketing is probably the easiest to automate. And you can just install N8N, and you can take that blueprint, and you can download it, and you can connect all of the agents to ChatGPT or Gemini or whatever LLM you're using. And you can actually start running your own agentic AI marketing business.
Wow.
Yeah, so the offering.
Coding, is that like non-code related, or do you have to be a coder to be able to build something like that?
No, you don't need to be a coder. I can do it, and I'm not a coder. it helps to understand basics of some things like, for example, understanding a little bit of Python. It's on the same level up that you understand Excel and how to do formula. You're Python doing some really simple stuff. So some very simple that are useful to know. But it's something that takes an hour or 2 hours to learn. It's very nice. It's pretty much a drag and drop.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. Scary at the same time.
Absolutely.
It's like giving a builder a pair of legs and a pair of arms to go off and do a ton of work. So yeah, in a computer world. All right. And I know we spoke about governance before as well, and that's a big area that you specialize in and you take very seriously. Why can't we govern AI agents in particular, and how are they different from traditional systems?
Let's take that the right way. It's not the question of that we can't govern AI. We can't even govern our data, and that's where it starts. So before we even have the conversation about AI governance, there's a data governance conversation to be had first. And that is really important, because if you don't do that, everything is academic. So what data governance does is to ensure that the data quality is right. What AI governance does is making sure that we are using that data in the right way. So it's introducing things like trust in the data, transparency, explainability, etc. So they're really addressing two different things, but they're really joined up here. You can't do one without the other. And the reason why it's so important and so difficult, obviously data governance is difficult in the first place, so we know that, is that as we're going up, and often talk about the 5 maturity levels, I find it much easier to understand agentic AI if there's something to compare with. And in the 5 maturity levels, level 1, that is your typical AI system, your chatbot, very basic. And then level 2, you have an AI agent. And that could be a policy agent, for example, that has all of your policy information, and that might be data governance. Then it's sort of working. And then we get into level 3, and there we see multi-agent systems. And then level 4 and level 5, you see more and more autonomy and more penetration of these AI agents. And governance shifts radically between each of these layers. And we can't even speculate really what's going to look like on level 5. It will be some kind of governance. So it's speculative. And obviously at level 1, it is just a general awareness. It's really at level 2, when organizations are setting up the first AI agents, they realize, okay, I have the agent, and needs to look at this information. We are making decisions based on what the agent is telling us. Obviously, that information needs to be right all the time. So that is how data governance can start. Then we have a huge shift. It's not small at all. 1 to 2 is easy. 2 to 3 is actually the hardest shift. So then AI governance is not optional anymore. In level 2, it's optional. You get away with only having data governance. In level 3, you need to understand the data. You need to be able to trust it. It's a lot of different data coming together. You need to be able to explain the decisions or choices that your agents are making, etc. And that makes it much more complex, because we don't have anything in organizations set up to do that. So we're really creating a lot of new things going forward in order to cope with or be able to manage this new agentic environment, agentic world that we're going into.
I completely agree. So real world AI implementations, what's blocking most companies from implementing AI agents properly?
Yes. The obvious answer is data, but I don't think we don't need to go there again. It's also culture. It's mindset. It's processes. To be really honest, I think a lot of organizations are going to struggle to go from level 2 to level 3. So my hypothesis is that they won't in a traditional sense, because I think that they will find that it's actually not possible to scale the current culture and systems in such a way. So what I think will happen is that they will take the concept, for example, the simulation concept, and we start thinking about incubation instead. So we create a side business or a side process or side something that has a different culture. different systems, different everything. You're designing it for the AI world. You're designing it, and then you're designing humans into the loop, into that process. And then you can connect that new system that you have created. You can connect that back with your existing systems, of course, using APIs, etc. And then what I see happening is that you're building this new business as you're commissioning the old business. I know that this sounds quite fantastic. And if you have a big business, obviously this is incredibly difficult. But I think it will be more difficult to try to transform what you have than to build new on the side.
Yeah, cool. No, I'm with you. And I know we've covered off a lot of these points here, so we don't want to cover off the same stuff. But where do most teams go wrong straight out the gate? So if they're starting off, what have you seen? What patterns have you seen that go wrong typically?
Yeah, it's always the same pattern. And it's a pattern that we have used so much in the past, and it has always worked. Start small and then expand.
Yeah.
Doesn't work like that in this case. You can start small, absolutely. You can create your POC, proof of concept, and that's very good. A lot of organizations have done that, and then they're facing the issue, how do I scale? And if it's really small POC and it's only looking at a little bit of data, perhaps they can scale it and take it into production readiness. But if it is larger than that, often they're finding that the governance itself, it just becomes too much. It's too complex. It's too involved. It's too much data. There are too many stakeholders. And then imagine if you have two of these agents and you're putting them together, what kind of combinations of risks, etc., that you could potentially get. So it's not really set up to do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Cool. Okay. And I know we've touched on governance in quite fine detail, and it was an area that I wanted to dig into a bit more. So without going over stuff that we've already spoken about, I'm quite keen to learn a bit more about what does good governance actually look like?
It would be greater to say, that organization and that organization and that organization. This is new. So there's no one that is at the forefront, or if they're in the forefront, they're certainly not sharing with us because they're using it as a competitive advantage. But we can still infer what it's like. So again, I'm harping on about the data governance. I promise this last time I'm saying it. So you have to be good at data governance, of course. I mean, that is always like the entry criteria. And then it is really about understanding the breadth of the governance that you need to do. So for example, there might be organizational governance, there might be operational governance, there might be technical governance. It is really about understanding the breadth of the governance and then start to tailor it to what you need to do. I think really what good looks like, it starts with the mindset, is understanding the picture, understanding how broad and complex it is. That's the first step. If you do that, I think everything else is easier.
Should fall into place. Yeah, I've got you. Okay. Looking back at your history as well. So you've led some great and huge transformation efforts. How do you keep innovation alive in companies that keep reorganizing or slowing down or reshuffling?
I have some strong views about the reorganization. I think if you want to keep moving, I think it is the key to reorganizations to as few as possible. Every time you do a reorganization, there's something that resets. And if you really have an organizational issue, that can only be resolved using an organizational restructure, you should do it. But if it's often to restructure to hide other things. So I think that we should minimize the restructures in the first place. That's going to help. I saw an interesting article on LinkedIn today that argued that innovation was the highest in 1873, and it has been declining since. I think innovation, the way that I can observe anyway, is actually fairly static and has been static for a while. I think if we're going to have an innovation conversation, again, it comes back to AI agents. And I think that innovation come. And if we talk about real innovation, it's probably when we have so much autonomy in the AI agents so that they can act autonomously with other AI agents, possibly from other organizations, in order to achieve common or joint goals. I think more than that, those areas are going to drive real innovation. I think that you will more embed AI into the organization. I think it's going to be pretty much a flat line.
Yeah. What does it really take to build a solid long-term capability or capabilities in this world? Is there any sort of, I know there's no one size fits all, but if there was a structure you could go across, what would you say that would look like exactly?
I would summarize that in one word, actually, and it's commitment.
Mhm.
And what I've seen,
No half-hearted.
a commitment, stay with it. When I see capability building fail, it's not because there are not enough smart people or anything like that. It's simply someone is not committed to it anymore. And if that the commitment is going to dissipate. So it's really be clear what you want to achieve and why you want to achieve it. And then making sure that it's important enough so you want to keep on achieving it. That's how you build the capability.
Appreciate that. Cool. All right. And for companies still on the sidelines, sitting around trying to see what's happening or not even getting involved, any honest advice that you give to them?
I have colleagues exactly like that. These are people that work in IT, that are more in the tech than I am. And I'm seeing a tsunami coming towards us. The speed is borderline insane. And I see my colleagues are just waiting and it's hasn't affected me yet, it's not going to affect. And I think their job may not even exist at all in 24. And we are probably
In that short time.
Microsoft, was it yesterday or the day before?
David
Was
Wall.
including the AI director. It's going to be this, if they will find a use case and they're going to introduce a Agentic system and just a large amount of people. It's going to be a recurring pattern and we're starting to see it.
They were speaking about it was to do with the restructure and the amount of compute and energy used, whatever else was the real reason why they've laid those people off. But do you think that might be a bluff, or do you think that could be more towards these jobs are being automated now and agents are set up to do their jobs?
Yeah, there's certain level of automation, but I also think that we should be a little bit careful because it's so easy to drink all of the Kool-Aid. I read an article the other day from a Swedish compatriot, the CEO of Klarna. It's a Swedish buy now, pay later organization. And he has been very vocal about agentic AI and the head sales source. And he said that throughout sales source and replace sales sources, they are agents. They got rid of a lot of customer service and replaced with AI agents. And he announced, I think it was a few days ago, we are probably taking it a little bit too far. We probably can't all of these AI agents. So they're bringing a significant amount of people back in. I don't know how many. I think there's probably a lot of hype at the same time. There's no doubt it's happening. And there's no doubt that it's in my mind that it is happening fast.
And just going back to the 12 to 24 months, some of your colleagues, friends, their jobs could be replaced. What makes you say that exactly? Is there something happening in the world, or is there a particular jobs, in fact, that you believe could be under pressure?
Yeah, I think anyone in IT, including myself, absolutely. I think whether you're an architect or a programmer, I used to think that architects are really smart people, so they are probably safe. No, they're not safe at all. I think too far until I can make better decisions. And so I think we obviously need to reinvent ourselves. And I think that reinvention is going to be very much about trying to ride the wave, trying to stay in front. For a foreseeable future, we're going to need governance and we're going to need a lot of it. And that's where I think the future opportunities are going to be. It's going to be about understanding how to govern AI. And that is not so much with technical skills anymore. So the advice I'm giving to my developer friends is, really start to understand prompt engineering, get some of these low-code, bro-code, whatever they're called, environment. Start experimenting, using plain English and build applications and learn lessons. learn that language, learn how to use English to build a system instead of using programming language. And I think that's really important. That is how you sort of ride in the way. When all of this new software is coming out, and I know that Microsoft, they are planning some very cool stuff, very high automation level. When all of that comes out, you want to be prepared and say, yeah, I completely get it. I've trained, you jump straight in and you start driving a new car, rather than starting to look for driver's license then.
Yeah, got you. For the younger generation coming out of school, for instance, what would you suggest if they're getting into the world of technology, for instance? Where should they go? What would you recommend?
Oh, that's probably the hardest question.
Very open question. And yeah, there's no one size fits all.
We talked about this the other day at work. And the comment was, and it was very insightful, and the comment was around the fact that there are not as many job opportunities anymore for the people coming through uni. And then this person said, that's all well and good, but how do we get our experienced hires? People are obviously getting older and older. And if you don't have a way of bringing the youngs in, we're going to get a gap. We obviously don't want to have that gap. So we raised the problem, and we didn't really raise the solution. It's a really hard question. I mean, personally, what I would do is I would throw myself into prompt engineering or things like that and really understand the language of LLM. It's changing the ground rules in a very interesting way. For example, people always think it's very technical to get into IT, for example, and it is technical right now. In the future, it's not going to be technical. As we just said, you can develop a system by talking to it. The person can communicate in the best, most sensible, clear way. It's good to develop the best system. So it's going to be different kind of competition, programming skills versus language skills, perhaps. So it's really about, I would start with prompt engineering. If I was, I would make myself an expert in that in the field that I'm interested in.
I was actually watching another program the other day, and it was talking about what you just said there, around 12 to 24 months, we could start seeing some big change. And in particular, it spoke about any job that's routine could be gone within that time frame. Would you agree with that?
100%.
Yeah.
I was speaking to my chiropractor the other day, and I said, I think your job is safe for quite a while. Perhaps at some stage, we're going to have robots that can crack a spine and a neck. I think those kind of jobs are going to be safe for quite a while. But I think that you said anything that is repetitive mentally are definitely going to be a target.
And there's a lot of people in my industry saying there's always that need for human interaction. I completely agree with that as well. But then again, if there's ways of saving on cost or whatever else, then there's going to be other systems that are going to come out and AI agents, whatever else to compete against it. But we're in a crazy time. It's like a revolution, right? So we'll see how it all transforms.
Can I make a comment on what you just said?
Sure, please do.
I would just like to add what I think is a very interesting perspective. And it started a while ago when I read something. It was probably 2-3 months ago. And it was an article about a woman, and she had programmed ChatGPT to be her boyfriend and to program ChatGPT to respond in a particular way. And my immediate thought was, that's just silly. And then I started to think about it. And I started thinking about it more and more. And I have a gun, and I don't, I'm just kidding. But I started thinking more.
How'd you do that?
I started to understand that they actually do know us. I mean, I spend 3-4 hours a day in engineering, and I've done for a long time, and I'm using the paid version of ChatGPT-4. It knows a lot about me. I can ask some very personal questions about my blind spots. What should I work on? This, that, and that, things I can't see myself normally. But it has this database, so then I can tell it, all right, I want you to analyze myself, in the context of Jung. They're given the analysis, or you could put on a philosophical filter. The point is that all of this stuff, all of this memory that you're giving it, you can replay that back to you in a number of different ways and get some very interesting insights. So, I'm not going to go down the girlfriend path, but I could honestly, instead of seeing a psychologist, I could see myself, at least in the first instance, go down the route.
Yeah, I think a lot of people are doing the same.
And I'm honest in my communication with ChatGPT. I'm not sitting there thinking, how should I frame this in case someone is looking at this later on? I mean, you're completely spontaneous in the way that you interact. So actually, it sees your authentic self. So it has 4 months, that's 5 months experience of your authentic self. So it must know a lot about you.
It's going to be a weird and strange world that we evolve into. Exciting, scary, a bit of everything, but stay optimistic and hope everything's governed, like you said before.
Ride away. So that's the final advice, ride away.
Yeah, ride the wave. That's it. And look, there was someone else I was speaking to the other day, a lady called Sophie, in fact. So she did have a question, which was pretty interesting. And then for anyone else in future episodes, I'd be keen for them to fire away, ask me questions so I can, again, get them answered for you. And this particular question was, how are businesses collaborating to ensure they are ready for AI? From a human and data tech perspective, and how will AI actually improve, enhance, optimize their organizational outcomes?
So if we go back to our conversation before, I think it's a bit difficult for an organization to even create a business case in its current environment, taking into account the current constraints. So I think that what is needed here, the way that I would approach it, I wouldn't try to fix what's broken. I would again try to look at it new. All right, so this is my business. This is my unique differentiator. What of that unique differentiator can I potentially take away or replicate here and rebuild? I don't think it can work in any other way. And I know that's not an answer many people are going to hear. And I hope I'm wrong. Really hope I'm wrong. But I'm playing with these systems myself, and every time it gets a bit more complex, there's just a new level of complexity you need to deal with. And yeah, I think we need to start here.
I appreciate that. And look, thank you so much, Jesper, for coming on today. It's been an absolute pleasure having a chat and going through everything. And I really hope that we've unpacked some real cool information, well, you in particular, for the audience. And hopefully they gain some insights and knowledge to take away and harness and implement, essentially. So thank you so much. I will speak to you very soon. And thank you to anyone listening. We'll see you soon. And that's a wrap for this episode. I hope you enjoyed and took something valuable away. If you've got any questions or you want to dig a bit deeper into what we covered, or even if there's something you'd like me to cover in future episodes, please do feel free to reach out. And if you're feeling stuck with where to start with AI, digital, or anything in between, drop me a message on LinkedIn or shoot me an email. More than happy to put you in the right direction, or we can line up a quick chat if you want to go deeper into how we can assist you. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next episode.